Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Meanwhile, at the party in Frieden, Lux swirled the wine in his glass before taking a sip. Truth be told, he wanted to drink until he was dead drunk yesterday, but his grandmaster ordered him to sleep first and delay his drinking urge until they held their welcoming party in the Elven Kingdom. Seeing that he was about to finish his second glass of wine, Ollie shook her head before tugging on Lux's clothes. "Why don't you invite Valerie to a dance?" Ollie asked. "Look at her. She looks bored of this place." The half-elf glanced at Valerie, who was currently being hand-fed by Ari with grapes. The plain-looking girl had a happy look on her face because she found the grapes of the Elven Kingdom very sweet and delicious. "She doesn't look bored to me," Lux replied before drinking the last of the wine in his glass. "But why not?" The red-headed teenager stood up and walked towards Valerie and asked her to dance. She didn't mind dancing with Valerie because she had become one of his closest friends in Karshvar Draconis. Immediately, the young lady's face turned beet red, but she still nodded her head to accept Lux's invitation. She had been wanting to dance with Lux, but she didn't have the courage to ask him. Ollie, who was doing her best to become a wingman, exchanged glances with her sister. Ari, who understood what Ollie did, nodded her head in understanding. "Don't worry, I have a plan," Ari whispered to her sister after Lux and Valerie had gone to the dance floor. "We will let Lux drink as much wine as he can. I've heard that the elven wine is so strong that it can intoxicate even a dragon. Of course, we will also let Valerie drink a glass or two. I don't know how high her alcohol tolerance is, but I'm pretty sure that it's not that high." Ollie nodded. "Good plan. Make sure to go to the kitchen to ask for 2 jars of wine when we retire for the night." The 2 handmaidens knew that their mistress lacked the courage and boldness to tell Lux her feelings. Because of this, they planned to make Valerie drunk so that she would lose her inhibitions and give her that boost to make her feelings known. Or, who saw Lux escort Valerie to the dance floor, looked at his 2 close friends with envy. If possible, he also wanted to dance. But due to his circumstances and what happened between him and Lux, he was finding it hard to be even near him. In the end, Or decided to just get himself drunk with wine in order to gain the courage to approach the half-elf and talk to him normally. Hirswith, who was paying close attention to her grand disciple, only smiled after seeing this scene. As a demigod, disguises didn't work on her. She had seen Valerie's true face, as well as the things that Or was hiding. The beautiful elf found all of this quite amusing, but it wasn't her place to expose Valerie and Or. She only wanted the best for Lux, especially after what happened to Gaap. After losing her one and only disciple, Hirswith vowed to herself that she would keep Lux safe and ensure that he would be able to live a happy life with the people who loved him. "Don't worry, Gaap," Hirswith thought. "I will look after him in your place." The hours passed by, and soon, Lux, Valerie, and Ollie returned to their residence. Ari didn't go with them because she went to the kitchen to get some more wine. There were still 2 hours until midnight, but they decided to continue their own drinking party inside their temporary residence, outside the royal kitchen. "That be asterisk th Hirswith needs to be put in her place," an elf woman said as he handed 2 vials to one of the maids of the castle. "She's been drinking a lot, and soon, she will run out of wine. Make sure to put this in the 2 jugs of wine that you will give her later. I want her to embarrass herself while she's in front of so many people." The maid accepted the 2 vials that contained purple liquid. "What is inside these vials, Lady Anika?" the maid asked. "Aphrodisiac," Lady Anika replied. "But these are not ordinary aphrodisiacs. It's the passion poison, which can make even adult dragons go into heat and make them lose their sanity. I can't wait to see that be asterisk th Hirswith make a fool of herself. Now, go and make sure that no one sees you. I don't want this to be traced back to me, understand?" "Yes, Lady Anika." The maid bowed and left. Inside the kitchen, everyone in the kitchen was busy preparing food for the guests, so the maid was able to slip in without too much effort. She then made her way to the rows of wine jugs that were prepared to be brought to the event hall. She sneakily glanced at her surroundings. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, she subtly poured the contents of the vials into the 2 wine jugs in front of her. After making sure that not even a single drop had been wasted, She hurriedly stored the vials inside her pocket and carried the wine jugs out herself. As soon as she left the kitchen, she found Hearswith walking in her direction with a mischievous look on her face. "Is that wine?" Hearswith asked. "The wine in the event hall is almost gone, so I came here to get my own. Can I have those, please?" "Of course, Your Highness," the maid replied as she handed the 2 wine jugs to Hearswith with a smile. "Thank you. You're a lifesaver." Hearswith smiled back before walking away. The maid watched her go before going away to meet with Lady Anika to make her report. Just as Hearswith was about to return to the event hall, she saw Ari walking in her direction. "Ari, what are you doing here?" Hearswith asked. "I'm here to get some wine, Your Excellency," Ari replied. "Lux and Valerie wanted to continue drinking in our residence. We don't really mingle with the crowd here, if you know what I mean." Hearswith nodded her head in understanding. "All right, take these 2 jugs then," Hearswith stated. "Make sure to let my cute grand disciple drink as much as he can until he gets knocked out, okay?" "You can count on me, Your Excellency," Ari replied with a smile. After bowing to Hearswith, the beautiful handmaiden turned to leave. Now that she had already gotten what she had come for, she could now go back to their assigned residence. Hearswith also turned back and went to the kitchen to get her own jugs of wine. It had been a while since she had drunk elven wine, so she planned to drink as much as she could until morning came. Just as Ari was returning to the residence, she met Or along the way, whose face was flushed from drinking. Since the handmaiden had a good impression of the Dragon Prince, she told him about their drinking party at their residence and invited him to join them. Or, who was feeling guilty about avoiding Lux for the entire day, agreed and accompanied Ari back to their quarters. He wanted to apologize and have a private talk with Lux about his secret. Since this was the perfect opportunity to do so, he decided to come clean and tell the half-elf the truth. Of course, since he treated Valerie as a close friend, he also decided to share his secret with her. That way, she would not feel too burdened whenever all of them were together. As Ari and Or made their way back to their friends, the maid, whom Lady Anika had bribed to spike Hearswith's drink, made her report. The elven lady laughed before hurriedly going to the event hall. She wanted to be on the front row when Hearswith shamed herself. As someone who had been on the receiving end of the elf princess vulgar words, Lady Anika wanted nothing more than to see Hearswith shame herself in front of the important members of the elven race, especially in front of the royal family, who had put together this party to honor their daughter's safe return to their kingdom. Disclaimer: you know the drill. Cheers. Ari raised her wine glass. Cheers. After Ari arrived at their temporary residence, everyone headed to Lux's room in order to start their mini-party. They already asked the palace servants to bring them some snacks, so they were only waiting for Ari. Once she had come with the wine, their late-night drinking party officially started. Valerie looked at her wine glass with genuine curiosity. "Can I really drink wine?" Valerie asked Ollie, who was refilling Lux's glass with more wine. "Of course you can," Ollie replied. "But drink moderately. Don't worry. We won't tell Lady Faustina about it." Getting assurance from her friend, Valerie no longer hesitated and drank her wine. "It's so sweet," Valerie said after drinking nearly half of the wine in her glass. "I think I like this wine." Or, who was already a bit tipsy from drinking during the party, placed his empty wine glass on the table, which Ollie refilled right away. After making sure that all the glasses were filled, Ollie drank the wine in her glass before giving it another refill. Ari was also drinking with a smile on her face. Compared to spending time socializing with the big shots of Elysium, she preferred this kind of small private party with friends. Lux, who had also drunk a lot of wine at the party, continued drinking because he wanted to be dead drunk. That way, he'd be numb and not think of anything. Truth be told, he still couldn't process AP's death, and it still hadn't registered to him that he was really gone. However, when he was at the party and dancing with his grandmaster, he suddenly realized that he wouldn't be able to see his master ever again, which made him want to drink to oblivion. Valerie, or Ollie, and Ari understood what Lux wanted to do, so they decided to accompany him to drink. The 5 of them ate and drank till midnight, not caring about what was happening at the party in the event hall. If they were there, they would notice a certain elf noble, who went by the name Anika, looking at Hearswith in confusion. She had just watched the beautiful elf finish 4 jars of wine, yet the latter still looked pretty fine. Was the aphrodisiac I got defective? Lady Anika thought. It shouldn't be. After all, I bought it from a Grandmaster alchemist. Since that's the case, why isn't it working? Lady Anika had been wanting to see Hearswith's fall from grace and was even feeling incredibly smug about what she did. However, as the hours passed, her confusion only grew, which made her wonder if the maid that she had bribed didn't follow her orders properly. That be asterisk Tisich, I will deal with her later. Lady Anika angrily left the event hall. Clearly, she wasn't happy that she wasn't able to see Hearswith's shameful behavior, which would ruin her image among the nobles of the elven race. Meanwhile, inside Lux's bedroom, or groaned as she slowly opened her eyes. She found herself lying on the carpeted floor of Lux's room. A/N. Since you guys already know, from this point onwards, I will be referring to or as SHE. Her head was aching, so she lightly rubbed her forehead with her hand to ease the pain she was feeling. It was at that moment when she noticed a piece of clothing on the floor, which made her frown. Soon, she saw more pieces of clothing scattered across the carpeted floor, further confusing her. Suddenly, she heard something in the direction of the bed. When her gaze landed on the place where the noise was coming from, or thought that she was just seeing things. Am I dreaming? Or thought as she looked at the unbelievable scene in front of her. However, the pain in her head made her realize that she wasn't dreaming, which made her body stiffen after realizing that what she was looking at was real. Lux was sitting on the side of the large bed. Valerie was seated on his right, and Ollie was on his left. The half-elf was currently kissing Valerie on the lips, while Ari was nibbling his ear. Or's gaze then landed on Ari, who was kneeling on the carpeted floor and watched the latter's head bob up and down near Lux's mid-region. All 4 of them were naked, and the half-elf had his arms wrapped around Valerie's and Ali's waist, holding them in place. Or watched as Lux's hands slowly moved upwards and cupped the 2 naked girls' breasts. A moment later, he started groping and kneading them, making Valerie whimper and Ali suck in a deep breath. Lux stopped kissing Valerie and shifted his attention to Ali. The beautiful handmaiden kissed Lux passionately, while her mistress panted for breath as Lux teased and pinched her nipple. After kissing Ali, Lux raised Valerie's body a bit higher and unceremoniously suckled her right breast, making the dragon princess subconsciously wrap her arms around his head, not knowing what else to do with the strange sensations that felt both familiar and unfamiliar to her. Ari, who was busy sucking the half-elf's shaft, had a flushed expression on her face. This was her first time doing something like this to a man, but for some reason, she just couldn't stop herself from monopolizing Lux's member for herself. As she was using her tongue to pleasure the half-elf, she felt his shaft twitch inside her mouth. Lux grunted as he released his seed inside Ari's mouth. The handmaiden, who was already expecting something like this to happen, closed her eyes as she swallowed Lux's essence to the best of her ability. A minute later, a popping sound was heard inside the room as Ari pulled her soft lips back. She then gazed at the glistening manhood in front of her and gave it a kiss. Lux then wrapped his arms around Valerie and made her sit on his lap. He kissed the plain-looking girl repeatedly and planted a kiss mark on her neck, making her gasp. He had drunk a lot of the wine, and his body was burning up with desire and lust due to the aphrodisiac. They had discovered this fact a bit too late, and even though they tried to resist it, it was simply too strong. It had blurred their common sense, and the only thing on their mind right now was to indulge in each other's bodies until the effect of the aphrodisiac was removed from their system. Valerie cupped Lux's face, and something unexpected happened. The plain-looking girl transformed into an angelic beauty right before Lux's eyes, making the half-elf's heart skip a beat. The dragon princess was very different from her usual bashful self, and it was as if a switch inside her head had been flipped. There was a tinge of wildness in her eyes as she looked at the man she loved. A seductive smile appeared on Valerie's face before she moved her head to whisper something in Lux's ears. "Make me pregnant," Valerie whispered like a devil, filling Lux's mind with a temptation that he couldn't resist. "You will take responsibility, right?" Lux didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hands on Valerie's backside and raised it up. The dragon princess planted a kiss on Lux's forehead as a sigh escaped her lips. She could feel something hot and hard rubbing on her entrance, and she was certain that once this night was over, the sweet dream that she had been having from time to time was about to become a reality. Make me pregnant. You will take responsibility, right? Lux looked at the angelic beauty's face, who was looking back at him with love and affection. Okay, Lux replied despite the haze that was clouding his common sense. He knew that all he needed to do was to thrust his hips once, and Valerie's chastity would be no more, making him her first man. But just as he was about to do it, a pair of hands wrapped around Valerie's body and pulled her away just in time before the half-elf's hips thrust upward. Ari giggled as she held Valerie in his arms and looked at Lux in a mischievous manner. "We can't have you do that, Lux," Ari said in a teasing tone. "We are the princess handmaidens, so?" "So, before you get to her," Ali said as she sat on Lux's lap, wrapping her arms around his head and staring at his green eyes that were tinged with lust. "You have to get past us first. We are her first and last line of defense." Lux smiled in a devilish manner before pecking Ali's lips once. "So be it," Lux said in a dangerous tone, which made Ali's heart beat wildly inside her chest. "Don't regret your decision." Ali smiled seductively. "It is you that I should be asking that question," Ali said softly as she looked at the man who was about to conquer her. "Don't regret it." "I won't." "Good." This time, Lux firmly held Ali's waist, making sure that she wouldn't be going anywhere. Valerie watched as Ali took the initiative to lower her hips, offering her first time to the red-headed teenager with whom she had developed feelings for. At first, Ali and Ari only wanted Valerie to be happy, so they did their best to support her feelings for Lux. However, as they got to know the half-elf better, the two handmaidens found themselves falling for him as well. Lux was handsome, powerful, and very caring. Sometimes, they would wonder how someone as kind as him was a necromancer. He wasn't a bloodthirsty person, ruthless, nor had a desire for dominion. Simply put, he was too good of a man to pass up. Originally, they thought that they would grow old and remain single for life while taking care of their gullible and kind princess. But now, things were different. She had become one with him, and her heart was telling her that she found the person that would love her for the rest of her life. Although there was pain, a promise had been born between them. Seeing her pained expression, Lux kissed her gently and affectionately. His kisses were so sweet that they made Ali forget the pain that she had felt a minute ago. Sensing that the beautiful handmaiden was no longer in pain, Lux started to move his hips, sending shivers running down Ali's spine. Valerie, Ari, and Or, who were watching this unfold, felt their bodies heat up. "I need to prepare Valerie," Ari thought. "Lux might be too big for her." Ari, who had lovingly sucked Lux's member earlier, knew how strong and amazing it was. Since it was going to be their princess' first time, she decided to prepare her for the inevitable. Valerie, who suddenly felt Ari's hand playing with her entrance, shuddered. The handmaiden was actively stroking the flames of lust and desire that were burning inside the dragon princess chest, whose body was starting to heat up even more. Or, who was suffering from a headache earlier, finally started to feel a tingling sensation in her lower abdomen. The effect of the aphrodisiac had been delayed because she had fallen asleep, but it was now descending in full, making her bite her lip. Ari, who noticed a movement behind her, looked at the other dragon princess, who started to touch herself through her clothes. "I wonder if Lux will also eat her up," Ari thought. From the beginning, Ali and Ari knew that Or was a girl. They weren't ordinary handmaidens because they had the ability to see the reality of things, so disguises, illusions, and invisible creatures couldn't escape their sight. However, they didn't point this out because this was Or's privacy. What she did with her life was none of their business. As long as the dragon princess of the Crystal Palace didn't hurt Valerie, they wouldn't do anything to expose her secret. As Ali's moans of pleasure became louder, Lux's movements became rougher. Suddenly, the handmaiden's body arched like a bow, pressing her body down more, ensuring that Lux could reach her deepest part as waves of pleasure momentarily made her blank out. At that moment, Ollie felt something hot seeping inside her body, making her shudder. She then felt Lux's arms wrap around her as he pulled her close to him. "Do you have any regrets?" Lux asked as he patted Ali's head that was resting on his shoulder. "No," Ali weakly replied. "It felt good." Lux planted a kiss mark on Ali's neck, making the latter close her eyes. Getting her body marked on the inside and outside made her heart flutter. However, she no longer had the strength to move due to how roughly Lux had made love to her. She understood that the half-elf was under the effect of the aphrodisiac, so he was unable to fully control his body. Ollie would forgive him for that, but she would also tell him to be gentle the next time he embraced her. As much as she wanted to monopolize Lux for the night, Ollie understood that she couldn't do that. So, she allowed herself to be princess carried by her man. Lux laid Ollie down on the bed and kissed her cheeks. He then gazed at Ari, who had a devilish smile on her face. "I guess it's my turn," Ari said before kissing Valerie's cheek. "I'll go first, princess. I'll see if this half-elf has what it takes to make you pregnant." She then lay Valerie on the carpeted floor before walking towards Lux, while swinging her hips seductively. "You're not getting any sleep tonight, handsome." Ari raised her hand and caressed Lux's chest and abdomen. "Just so you know, I'm not like my sister. You will have a harder time with me." Lux smirked because Ari's provocation fired him up. Several minutes later, Ari's confidence disappeared when she remembered something important. Lux wasn't an innocent virgin who had no idea how to make love to women. She realized this a bit too late as her body shuddered uncontrollably and squirted. "I only used my hand, my darling Ari," Lux said in a teasing tone as he watched Ari pant for breath after he finished his foreplay. The half-elf then lightly bit her right breast, leaving a mark on her skin that was as white as cream. "I hope you're ready," Lux said before spreading the beautiful maiden's legs. "You won't be getting any sleep tonight." Soon, Ari's moans of pleasure reverberated inside the room. The half-elf had wanted to take it easy on her earlier, but Ari's provocations made him want to dominate her and make her understand that she shouldn't play with fire. Her earlier smugness was nowhere to be seen as she clenched the bed sheets, trying to endure Lux's powerful thrusts that were slowly, but surely, conquering her body and heart. Lux looked at the young lady who was lying on the bed, her body twitching from time to time. With how cheeky Ari spoke earlier, the half-elf didn't hold back and made her orgasm 5 times, leading her to this state. "So, you can also make this a Higo face, Ari," Lux thought as he lifted the young lady from the bed and laid her down beside her sister, who was still recovering. The bed was large enough for over a dozen people to sleep, so there was plenty of space for her to rest properly. Lux planted a kiss on Ari's forehead and apologized to her in his heart. He should have controlled himself better, but the beautiful handmaiden teased him into losing it. Frankly, the half-elf was wondering if Ari was a succubus in disguise due to how irresistible she was. Suddenly, someone hugged him from behind, holding him in place. The red-headed teenager could feel 2 soft mounds pressing on his back, making little Lux rise up to do battle once more. The half-elf turned around and looked at the angelic beauty, who was looking back at him with an affectionate gaze. He had an inkling that Valerie was wearing a disguise whenever she came to meet him. However, Lux treated her as a friend and didn't care what she looked like, so he never asked her to show him her true face. But looking at this beauty in front of him, Lux finally understood why she always wore a disguise whenever she snuck out of her house. "You're very beautiful, Valerie," Lux said as he rested his hands on the young lady's waist. "I'm glad that I can finally see the real you." Valerie smiled and placed her hands on Lux's shoulders. She then stood on tiptoe and kissed him. The half-elf accepted the kiss and reciprocated the intimacy, pulling her close to him. The dragon princess face flushed when she felt something hot and hard pressing against her abdomen. However, she continued to kiss Lux, letting the aphrodisiac lessen her inhibitions and giving her the courage to do something that she would never have done in her sober state. In fact, she even pinned the handsome half-elf on the bed, pressing her body over his, which made her feel as if she was the one in control. Knowing that it was her first time, Lux allowed her to do what she wanted, but that didn't mean that he was being idle. While Valerie was attacking his lips, His hands sneaked their way into her backside, groping her bum and marveling at how soft and smooth it was. A moment later, Valerie's kisses trailed downward, leaving trails on his body. Although she didn't have any practical experience, she had learned a lot from her seductive dreams, in which Lux was the one that took the lead. She copied what the handsome half-elf did to her in her dreams, kissing Lux's body and leaving kiss marks along the way. As her lips made their way to his mid-region, Valerie came face to face with little Lux, who was twitching under her gaze. "So cute," Valerie said before kissing it. She was the complete opposite of the shy maiden that she was in her sober state. She was more adventurous, and her determination to make Lux feel good fueled the passion that was burning in her heart. Or, who was watching what was happening on the bed, was feeling so hot that she was very tempted to remove her clothes. However, she was still able to hold on to what little sanity she had left and did her best to not lose control. But when she saw Valerie start to kiss, lick, and suck Lux's member, or felt as though something important to her was being taken away. Truth be told, she was still unaware why she was feeling this way toward Lux. When they first met, she didn't think much of him. However, after seeing the dragon token in his hands, she paid more attention to him. As they spent more time together, their relationship became closer to the point that she was feeling jealous whenever she saw other girls hanging around the half-elf. She understood that she was being irrational, but she simply couldn't stop herself from feeling that way. And now, seeing Valerie kiss something that was precious to the man she liked, she felt as if the dragon princess of Karsvar Draconis was about to take something precious to her. While Or was doing her best to control the raging emotions in her heart, Lux patted Valerie's head gently as if praising her for doing a good job. A moment later, the half-elf propped himself up from the bed and swapped places with Valerie. This time, it was him who was kissing, licking, and sucking her precious place, making the angelic beauty moan. Her hands held onto Lux's head, pulling him closer to her. A few minutes later, Valerie's body shuddered as Lux brought her to the peak of pleasure. The half-elf looked at the defenseless beauty who was panting for breath on the bed. He then moved to kiss her cheek before whispering something in her ears. "Do you really want to get pregnant?" Lux asked. "Are you willing to bear my child?" "Yes," Valerie replied. "I am willing." "Are you sure?" "Yes. Please, make me pregnant, Sir Lux." The dragon princess covered her face with both hands in embarrassment. After experiencing her first orgasm, she broke out of her daze and returned to her timid self. However, when Lux asked her if she really wanted to get pregnant with his child, she readily said yes. She had been asked this question multiple times in her dreams. Truth be told, she wasn't sure what answer she should give. But after experiencing the battle in the Divine Empire and seeing how Lux almost died in the hands of his enemies, Valerie knew then and there that life was unpredictable. It was not only Lux who had been shaken when JAP died. Valerie was shaken as well. There was a time when she visited Lux's guild headquarters and had a few interactions with JAP. The halfling was very kind and even encouraged Valerie to know more about the world. After seeing him die from a distance, the dragon princess finally understood that no one knew when they would depart from this world. So when Lux asked if she was willing to give birth to his child, she said she was willing. Whatever happened in the future, she promised herself to be a good mother and raise Lux's child with love and care. The handsome young man pried Valerie's hands that were covering her face and kissed her lips. He could feel Valerie's resolve, and he decided to match it. "I promised to take responsibility," Lux said before removing a ring from his finger. This ring was the same ring that his grandma Vera had given him after he had won the tournament in Barbados Academy. This prevented the woman with whom he was going to make love from getting pregnant. The effect of this ring was nullified when he was in the abyss because the laws there were different. Fortunately, the power of the ring had already taken effect on Kai's body, preventing her from getting pregnant for 2 years unless Lux removed the ring and canceled its effects. Now, the only thing that prevented him from letting his fiancée conceive his child was no longer on his hand. The half-elf embraced the dragon princess, intending to grant her wish. Valerie couldn't remember how many times she had dreamed of this moment. Lux's kisses, touch, warmth, and love. She had dreamed all of them and more. Even now, she was wondering if everything that was happening was a dream. The last time she was sober was before she drank the wine that Ali and Ari had given her. They said that drinking 1 or 2 glasses was fine, and also promised that they would not tell Lady Faustina or her father about this secret party. But to the surprise of her 2 handmaidens, Valerie's alcohol tolerance was quite high. Instead of drinking 2 to 3 glasses, she had drunk 6 without any problem. The wine was sweet, and she found it to her liking. However, after downing her 6th glass, Valerie felt that something was wrong with her body. She was feeling hot, so hot that beads of sweat had formed on her forehead. To her surprise, she wasn't the only one that was feeling that way. In fact, Lux had taken the initiative to remove his upper clothes because of how hot he was feeling. That was the trigger that started it all. Ari, who was the most courageous among them, didn't hesitate to place her hand on Lux's chest and started to touch him here and there. A moment later, her handmaiden moved closer and pecked Lux's lips. She did this not once, not twice, but 5 times. Soon, Lux reciprocated her kisses and started to kiss her passionately. Although Ari was caught by surprise, she didn't back down and even took the initiative to cup Lux's face and kiss him back. What happened next for Valerie was all a blur. Before she knew it, her clothes were already lying on the floor, and she was seated beside Lux on the bed. When Lux kissed her, she momentarily blanked out because it was her first time being kissed in such an intimate and passionate manner. When he pulled back to kiss Ali, Valerie felt a sense of loss and loneliness, which surprised her very much. Just as she was about to sulk, Lux's hand moved to grope her chest, making her gasp in surprise. His hands were hot, large, and fanned the flames inside her body, making her heat up even more. When Lux made her sit on his lap, she fell into a trance-like state and said that she wanted to be pregnant with his child. At that moment, Valerie understood that she was really going to become one with Lux, and it filled her heart with anxiety, anticipation, and happiness. But just as they were about to become one, Ari pulled her away, denying her the one thing that she had been waiting for in her life. Now that Ali and Ari were lying on the bed not far from her, she knew with every fiber of her being that no one would get in the way of her union with Lux. The moment he entered her, Valerie instinctively clenched the bed sheets and endured the pain of having her chastity taken from her. Lux knew that Valerie was in pain, so he didn't move his hips and, instead, kissed her while groping her breasts. Valerie could feel her pain melting away, and it was replaced by a tingling sensation in her lower abdomen that traveled to the rest of her body. A few minutes later, Lux stopped kissing the angelic beauty and held her slender waist. He was finding it hard to hold back his desire to ravage her body, but he endured because the dragon princess wished to conceive his child. Lux wanted to make her feel good, so he began to move his hips at a steady pace, going deeper inside of her with every thrust. Valerie subconsciously planted her feet on the bed and raised her hips, as if offering her most precious treasure to the man who held the key to her heart. "Valerie, you're driving me crazy," Lux said hoarsely as the speed of his thrusts increased. The moans that Valerie was desperately trying to hold back finally escaped her lips, and once they did, there was no going back. The half-elf lowered his head and suckled her right breast for a few seconds before biting her nipple. A popping sound reached Valerie's ears the moment the half-elf released the pink tip from his lips. But it didn't end there. Lux kissed and sucked her neck, while his left hand groped her left breast. Valerie's pleasure-filled sighs echoed inside the room, as waves of pleasure washed over her body. The pain she had felt earlier seemed like a fleeting dream, and now it was replaced by warmth and happiness that was threatening to burst from her chest. A few minutes later, her body arched upward like a bow, as Lux released his seed deep inside her womb, marking her his woman. Lux felt as if his soul was being sucked out of his body due to how powerful his release was. He didn't know if this was due to him removing the everlasting ring from his finger, which prevented him from accidentally getting someone pregnant, or something else. Now that its effects were no longer in place, the half-elf's release was not only strong but longer as well. It was at that moment that he once again realized that Valerie might really get pregnant with his child tonight, and this thought made his heart beat wildly inside his chest. The half-elf looked at the peerless beauty under him as he panted for breath. Just like him, Valerie still hadn't recovered from the aftermath of their lovemaking. Her breathing was ragged, her face was flushed, and her body was hot. A few minutes later, a sweet smile appeared on her lips as she lovingly caressed her lower abdomen. "Sir Lux, am I pregnant now?" Valerie asked in an innocent tone, which made Lux draw in a deep breath because a strong urge to ravage her goddess-like body gripped his heart. "I don't know," Lux replied, "but we can do it again to increase the chances of success." Valerie's smile widened, but before Lux could make love to her for the second time, the angelic beauty shook her head. "There's someone else waiting for your love, Sir Lux," Valerie said softly. She had waited long enough. "Please, love her as well." Lux turned around to look at Or, whose face was beet red as she breathed heavily, lying on the carpeted floor. Even after making love 3 times to 3 beautiful ladies, the effect of the aphrodisiac on Lux's body was still strong. Since Or had been enduring its effect without release, the half-elf knew that she was suffering terribly. Or then saw Lux walking towards her, which made her body tremble. She instinctively knew that it was her turn to make love with the half-elf, and honestly, her body was more than ready for it. This was why when Lux picked her up from the floor and carried her like a princess, Or buried her face in Lux's chest. "Please, not on the bed," Or said softly. Or didn't want to be on the same bed as Valerie, Ali, and Ari, not because she didn't like them, but because she wanted to have Lux for herself. Perhaps, understanding what was on her mind, Lux carried her on the couch, which was a few meters away from the bed. The half-elf slowly placed her on the couch, making her sit on it. "Or, we don't need to go all the way," Lux said as he looked into her eyes. "I will just help you find release. I know that it will take some time, but the effect of the aphrodisiac will disappear before morning comes. I don't want you to do something that you will regret in the future." "Aurelia?" "Huh. My name is Aurelia." Aurelia wrapped her arms around Lux's head, pulling him close to her. "Lux, I still don't know if I love you or not, but I know for certain what I want tonight." She looked at Lux with a gaze filled with yearning. "I want you, Lux. So, make me yours as well." Aurelia kissed the half-elf's lips as a tear streamed down the side of her face. Unlike Valerie, who wanted to bear his child, Aurelia only wished to be with him and confirm the feelings that had started to blossom in her heart. Aurelia felt her heart melting as she shared a sweet and gentle kiss with Lux. This was her first kiss, and it was everything she wanted, but she craved more. Seeing her relaxed after being kissed, the half-elf decided to kiss her more, calming down the burning desire that had already taken root in Aurelia's body. When their lips parted, Aurelia was finally able to take some air in. She had almost forgotten how to breathe because her mind went blank after being kissed repeatedly by the man who held a special place in her heart. Suddenly, Lux's hands moved to remove her clothes. Aurelia looked like she was in a daze and didn't resist, allowing the half-elf to do what he wanted. However, the moment his gaze landed on her chest, Aurelia immediately covered them with a flushed expression on her face. "Don't look," Aurelia said. "They're small." Lux smiled and tried to pry her hand away from her chest, but she didn't budge. Seeing how resolute her face was, the half-elf decided to take off her pants instead. Or always wore men's clothes to disguise her true gender. Fortunately, she was able to pull it off thanks to her refined androgynous features. But the Dragon Prince's face had always tilted a bit to the feminine side, especially with her long silver hair tied up with a hair clip. Now that Dragon Prince had finally shown her true colors, the half-elf couldn't help but look at her in a new light. With only her underwear covering her body, he was able to see and appreciate the true beauty that she was hiding. Lux's right hand caressed Aurelia's thigh, making the latter shudder. Despite all this, she was still using her hands to cover her breasts. She bit her lips, enduring the sensual assault on her thighs. She might be feeling insecure about her breasts, Lux thought. This makes me want to see it more. The half-elf knew that this wouldn't be easy, so he decided to take his time to caress the dragon princess in front of him. He kissed her again on the lips because he realized that Aurelia folded from gentle and sweet kisses. His left hand rested on Aurelia's arm, which she used to cover her chest, while his right hand continued to caress her thighs, making the latter feel jolts of electricity run down her spine. As Lux slowly weakened her resistance, the arms that were covering her chest relaxed a bit. Soon, the half-elf managed to pry her hands away because the young lady's strength was failing her. He then pulled back and looked at the white band which bound Aurelia's breasts. A single glance was enough to make him understand that this chest band was suppressing her breasts, to make them not show under her clothes. Lux didn't hesitate and removed the chest band, allowing him to see Aurelia's modest breasts, which she was very insecure about. "Don't look," Aurelia tried to cover her chest a second time. "They're small." The half-elf shook his head. "They're not small. They are at least B-cup." "B-cup?" Aurelia asked in a daze. She didn't understand what Lux was talking about, but before she could ask him more about it, the half-elf gently pried her hand away before lowering his head to plant a kiss on her right breast. Aurelia shuddered as the half-elf continued to kiss her right breast repeatedly. She wanted to push his head away, but she couldn't muster the strength to do it. "They're beautiful, Aurelia," Lux said softly as he looked up to look at her flushed expression. "I love them." After saying those words, the half-elf gently squeezed her right breast before sucking on it. Aurelia drew in a deep breath as Lux sucked, licked, and nibbled on the nipple inside his mouth. The half-elf's other hand then groped her left breast. He pinched, teased, and flicked her nipple, making her whimper from the sensations that were washing over her body. Just as Lux expected, her was very insecure about her breast size. They weren't as big as Valerie's, Ali's, and Ari's, which made her feel inferior. But little did she know that those with smaller breasts were more sensitive compared to those with bigger ones. This was why every time Lux played with her sensual pink tips that were standing firm and aching for his touch and kisses, she would start feeling strange. At first, she couldn't understand what was happening, but as time went on, the tingling sensation spread throughout her body. Sweet sighs escaped her lips without her awareness. Lux paid extra attention to her breasts, groping them, kneading them, and loving them. Seeing that Lux seemed to be enjoying them to his heart's content, Aurelia soon felt that having small breasts might not be a bad thing. This made the dragon princess regain a bit of her confidence. She then wrapped her arms around Lux's neck and kissed his head repeatedly. It was her way of showing her gratitude to the half-elf, who was making her feel loved and appreciated. After sensing the changes in Aurelia's attitude, Lux started to kiss her downward until he reached her forbidden fruit, which was now slick and wet with desire. She had watched how he had made love with Ali, Ari, and Valerie, and truth be told, she was reaching the limit of her endurance. This was why the moment Lux kissed that place and used his tongue to pleasure her, Aurelia's body trembled, and a clear liquid sprayed on the half-elf's face. Yes, the dragon princess squirted, catching her and Lux by surprise. Or didn't know what happened as she leaned on the couch, panting for breath. Lux, on the other hand, wiped his face and grinned. Similar to Aurelia, this was the first time that he had seen a lady squirt, and for some reason, it put a smile on his face. His fiancées, Iris and Kai, whom he had made love with numerous times, never squirted. When he made love with the succubus queen, Rhiannon, she didn't squirt as well. As for Ali, Ari, and Valerie, the three dragon girls also didn't have this kind of reaction either. She must have been holding back for a long time, huh? Lux thought as he sat beside or and hugged her close to him. It took a while for the dragon princess to regain her composure, and she looked at the half-elf with a beet-red face that made him chuckle. "Or, place your hands on the couch and stick your butt out towards me," Lux said softly as he took out the everlasting ring to place it on his finger. Unlike Valerie, Aurelia didn't ask him to make her pregnant, so he was going to make sure that no accidents happened. However, just as he was about to put the ring on, or held onto his hand. "What does that ring do?" Aurelia asked. "Why did you remove it when you did it with Valerie, and why are you putting it on?" Lux smiled. "This ring is similar to a contraceptive ring. It prevents anyone from getting pregnant when I release my seed inside their bodies." "I'm sure you don't want to get pregnant, right?" "No, I don't want to get pregnant," Aurelia replied. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to give birth to your child. Don't wear it, Lux. Let fate decide if I am destined to conceive your child. Are you sure? Lux asked. Is it fine for you to gamble like this? You are the Dragon Prince of the Crystal Palace. If you get pregnant, won't things become complicated for you since you are hiding your true gender? It's fine, Lux, Aurelia smiled. Like I said earlier, let fate decide if I am meant to conceive your child. When the half-elf continued to stare at her, or sighed. There is something it seems you do not understand, Lux. It's very difficult for dragons to conceive. Even if you don't wear that ring, your chances of leaving me and Valerie pregnant are not that high. We are of different races, and our bodies are built differently. We don't have regular cycles like humans do. Even we don't know if it is our safe day or not. Lux glanced at Valerie, who was looking at them from the bed. The angelic beauty nodded her head, as if to confirm Aurelia's words. Understood, Lux said as he returned the everlasting ring inside his storage ring. Place your hands on the couch and raise your butt. This way it will hurt less. Aurelia nodded and kissed Lux's lips before doing what he asked of her. Lift it a bit higher, Lux ordered, making Aurelia feel as if she was about to be conquered. But she didn't mind. Since the one who was about to conquer her was Lux, she would gladly surrender herself to him. Seeing her obediently follow his order, Lux lovingly kissed her back before rubbing his member against her entrance. Are you ready? Lux asked. Yes, Aurelia replied as she closed her eyes and braced herself for what was about to come. A gasp escaped Or's lips the moment Lux's member tore through the thin membrane that kept her chastity in place. A few seconds later, a drop of blood dripped onto the couch, proving that Lux had successfully taken her virginity. Are you all right? Lux asked because she didn't expect Or to bleed this much after a single thrust. Yes, Aurelia replied. It's not as painful as I thought it would be. Don't mind me, and make both of us feel good. She's really built differently, Lux thought as he endured the tightness that was threatening to crush his member. Lux's hands dug into Aurelia's backside as he moved his hips slowly at first, gradually gaining momentum. He was gauging her reaction, and after seeing that she was truly all right, his movements fell into a steady rhythm, eliciting soft sighs of pleasure from the beautiful princess who now belonged to him. The half-elf hugged her petite body from behind, groping her chest as he continued to thrust inside of her. Aurelia felt so comfortable in Lux's embrace that she even tried to turn her head around to look behind her. Lux paused his movements for a bit to kiss her lips. When the kiss ended, the half-elf pulled Aurelia in a standing position. He kept his member firmly embedded inside of her as he kissed her passionately. His hands groped her breasts, kneading them in any way that he wanted. Just like Valerie, Ali, and Ari, Aurelia had her own charm, and the half-elf found it very irresistible. The handsome and confident dragon prince, who always had an aloof expression ever since he met her for the first time, appeared inside the half-elf's head. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that Or was actually a princess. Truth be told, he was completely turned on by this sudden change in her character. Now, that same dragon princess was within his embrace and reciprocating his fiery kisses with kisses of her own. Lux then finally pulled back and glanced at his member, which was glistening with blood and bodily fluids. He then sat on the couch and pulled Aurelia close to him, asking her to straddle him. Put it in yourself, Lux ordered in a teasing tone. You can do that, right, Aurelia? As the dragon prince of the Crystal Palace, Aurelia was used to being the one who gave orders. Now that she was being ordered by the half-elf in front of her, she found herself following what he said and slowly inserted his member deep inside of her. Lux, are you a dragon? Aurelia asked after she had taken Lux's entirety inside of her. For some reason, I felt compelled to listen to your orders. It was as if I was looking at a future Dragon King candidate. Not a Dragon King, but an emperor, Lux replied before setting his hands on Aurelia's waist. My physique is a bit special, allowing me to transform and gain the powers of dragons. You have already seen it in action, right? Aurelia nodded. Yes, I saw it in the past. A dragon emperor? Now that you said it, I think that your chances of getting us pregnant are very high due to your physique. Do you want me to wear the ring? Lux asked. No. Aurelia smiled. This is my first time taking a gamble. I wonder if you will be lucky or not. Lux felt as if Aurelia was challenging him. Still, he found her words very stimulating, and her folds wrapped around his member very comfortably. You know, my patron god is the god of gamblers, but I don't feel lucky at all. You took the chastity of 2 dragon princesses, and one of them wants to bear your child. You call that unlucky? Lux smiled as he slowly raised Aurelia's hips. Like you said, there's no guarantee that I can make her pregnant the first time. So, I have to work a bit harder to grant her wish. Indeed, Aurelia agreed as a sweet smile appeared on her face. Please work harder and make me feel good. Yes, Your Highness, Lux replied as he took her in, entirely at her own word. Soon, Aurelia's moans echoed inside the room as Lux continued to make love to her. The insecurities, fears, as well as inferiority she felt had long disappeared as she clung to his body, allowing him to drown her in waves of pleasure that she was feeling for the first time. She loved his touch, enjoyed his kisses, appreciated his whispers of love, and yearned for release. She could feel something rising inside of her body, which scared and excited her at the same time. Aurelia had a feeling that the moment Lux released his seed inside of her, she would feel a happiness that words would not be able to describe. Half a minute later, her expectations came to reality. Lux grunted as he buried his face between her breasts, while Aurelia's hands subconsciously scratched his back as the half-elf's love burst forth inside of her womb. Aurelia bit Lux's shoulder as she tried to endure the intoxicating euphoria that was threatening to drive her crazy. Similar to what happened to Valerie, the half-elf's release was long and strong, making Aurelia feel as if she was melting from the inside out. Even after the last drop of his seed seeped inside her womb, the two remained embracing each other while panting for breath. Aurelia had once again squirted, but she was too exhausted to care. All she wanted was to stay in Lux's embrace as she basked in the afterglow of their lovemaking. A moment later, Lux carried Aurelia and brought her to the bed, laying her beside Valerie. Ollie, Ari, and Valerie looked at him with expectant gazes. They had fully recovered and were waiting patiently for their turn. Ari, being the mischievous handmaiden that she was, used her hands to spread hers and Valerie's pink petals, allowing Lux to get a better view of their forbidden fruit that made his manhood harden and throb. Ari, are you really a dragon? Lux asked as he moved towards the bed with a devilish smile on his face. Maybe you are a succubus in disguise. Am I a dragon? Ari grinned. Or a succubus? Why don't you use little Lux to examine my body? That way, you will find the answers that you are looking for. Girl, I'll make you regret this, Lux said as he inserted his fingers inside Valerie's and Ari's entrances, making the two girls look at him with an affectionate gaze. Do your worst, Ari stated in a challenging tone. You're not getting any sleep tonight. And with that, Lux tumbled on the bed with the 4 dragons girls, who were more than willing to make love with him and to be loved back by him. Several hours later, Lux gazed at the 4 sleeping beautiful ladies who were lying on the bed. His seed overflowed from their lower halves, and if any man were to see them, he'd definitely be the receiving end of their envy and jealousy. The half-elf burned this scene in his memory before using his magic to lift his lovers from the bed. He then took them to the spring area within the residence and cleaned their bodies. After he was done with their aftercare, he carried them back to the room and changed the bed sheets with new ones. Knowing that he couldn't let anyone see the evidence of their lovemaking, the half-elf stored the bed sheets that were stained with the proof of his lover's first time. Once everything was finished, he laid everyone on the bed and slept in the center. Valerie and Or, who were half asleep, moved closer to Lux and rested their heads on his shoulders. That was the last thing he saw before he fell asleep due to exhaustion. On the rooftop of the residence, Hearswith refilled her glass of wine and smiled. As expected of my grand disciple, Hearswith muttered. He is not a pussy like those cunts from the divine army of light. The beautiful elf chuckled as she imagined the possible reaction of the Dragon King of Karsvar Draconis, who had no idea that his beloved daughter had already become a woman. Hearswith snapped her fingers and strengthened the barrier around the residence, preventing anyone from disturbing the rest of her grand disciple and his lovers, who were all smiling in their sleep. When Lux opened his eyes, he found himself embracing two ladies whose beauty could bring the downfall of a nation. On his right side was an angelic beauty with long purple hair and an hourglass body that would bring the models back on Earth to shame. She was none other than Valerie, the dragon princess of Karshvar Draconis. On his left side was a beauty with long silver hair and an enchanting figure that no man could resist. Holding these two beautiful ladies in his arms made Lux feel blessed and fearful at the same time. It finally dawned on him the magnitude of what he had done several hours ago, which he had partially forgotten due to the side effect of the aphrodisiac that had been mixed into their wine. The half-elf wasn't thinking straight back then, and the only thing on his mind was to indulge in the pleasurable feeling of making love with the four ladies, who had sated the burning lust that spread through his entire body like wildfire. Several hours ago, these four ladies were still virgins. But now, all of their wombs had been tainted by him, and he even left his mark on their once chaste bodies. Lux also noticed that one of Valerie's handmaidens, Ollie, was hugging the dragon princess from behind and sleeping peacefully. The half-elf could still remember how cooperative she was last night, and the two of them enjoyed their lovemaking to the fullest. As to how he knew that the one hugging Valerie was Ollie instead of Ari, well, the answer was simple. The succub, dragon, Ari, was busy servicing little Lux, who was quite lively so early in the morning. This was also what woke up Lux. He wasn't that much of a heavy sleeper, and he felt that someone was having her way with his body while he was sleeping. Since he now recognized the mischievous and bold girl as one of his lovers, he didn't stop her and allowed her to do what she wanted. After all, she now belonged to him, and he belonged to her. A few minutes later, a grunt escaped Lux's lips as he released his seed inside her mouth. Ari, who had been waiting for this moment, held his member firmly with her seductive lips and swallowed everything until the last drop. When it was over, she made sure to clean the half-elf's shaft before kissing its tip. She then raised her head to look up at Lux with a mischievous smile on her face. Since she didn't want to wake Valerie, Ollie, and Aurelia, Ari simply mouthed "Good morning, darling," to Lux without any sound. The half-elf did the same, but deep inside his mind, he couldn't help but sigh. This girl is insatiable, Lux thought as he steadied his breathing. I worry about our future. As if sensing his thoughts, Ari giggled before crawling toward him and pressing her hands against his chest to give him 3 quick pecks on the lips before pulling back. The mischievous handmaiden then waved her hand to bid her goodbye and left the room. Lux had a feeling that Ari would wash up before preparing their breakfast so that they could eat once Valerie, Ollie, and Aurelia woke up. After Ari left, he busied himself by looking at his lovers' sleeping faces. All 3 of them looked very defenseless, and the sight of it made a certain warmth spread inside his heart. I guess I'll invite the Dragon King to go fishing with me, Lux thought before planting a kiss on Valerie's and Or's foreheads. I will take Grandmaster with me just in case. Lux didn't know how the Dragon King would react once he told him something along the lines of, "Your daughter calls me daddy too." But, hypothetically, before Lux did that, he would ensure that he was at least 2 miles away from the Dragon King of Karshvar Draconis. That way, he would have time to escape if need be. Since Ollie was a bit far from him, he decided to just kiss her after she had woken up. Half an hour later, Valerie started to stir. Lux watched as she slowly opened her eyes and looked at him in a daze. Feeling a bit mischievous, he decided to kiss her lips, making the dragon princess' eyes widen in shock. However, she soon closed her eyes and reciprocated his kiss, washing away all the drowsiness in her head. When their lips separated, Valerie looked at Lux with an affectionate gaze. "This isn't a dream, right?" Valerie asked. "I am now yours, right, Sir Lux?" "Yes," Lux replied softly. "This isn't a dream. You are now my woman." "I'm glad." Valerie smiled sweetly. "I was afraid that this was just another dream." The angelic beauty then snuggled close to Lux and hugged him tight, pressing her body against his. Her movements had woken up Or, who then looked at the half-elf in a daze. It took a while for her to recall everything that happened last night, and once she remembered everything, her face immediately turned crimson. "Good morning, Aurelia," Lux said as he looked at the blushing beauty who made the most love to him several hours ago. "You were amazing last night." Aurelia's face, which was already near scarlet, became a shade redder after hearing Lux's compliment. Seeing her reaction, the half-elf chuckled before pulling her close to him and sealing her lips with his own. He realized that the dragon princess of the Crystal Palace seemed to be addicted to kissing and would kiss Lux every opportunity she got. He didn't mind. In fact, he was happy to share sweet and intimate kisses with Aur, enjoying this innocent side of hers. Aurelia surprisingly had high stamina, and her recovery rate was quite fast as well. After realizing that she didn't need to feel inferior to Valerie, Ali, and Ari because of her breast size, she threw caution to the wind and became unbridled. Also, it was then that Lux realized that Aurelia liked to take the lead, so he allowed her to do what she wanted, only guiding her on how to make both of them feel good. When the kiss ended, Aurelia covered her face with both hands as she buried her head in Lux's chest. "Lux, do you know what you have done?" Aurelia said after regaining her composure. "Do you know the gravity of the situation?" "If asterisk get up, right?" Lux admitted. "But it was worth it." He should have been feeling anxious and fearful, but he was smiling. Clearly, he didn't have any regrets about all the things he had done the night before. A sigh escaped Aurelia's lips before shaking her head. "What do you plan to do now?" Aurelia asked. "I think it is best to keep this a secret for now. If Valerie's father discovers that you have plucked her cherry, he will pluck your limbs off one by one before roasting you alive." Lux turned his head to look at Valerie and saw that her face had become pale from fright. Clearly, Aur's words scared her, and it made her realize that her father might really kill Lux if he found out that the half-elf had made her his woman. "Understood," Lux replied. "Let's keep our relationship a secret for now. But remember this, I will take responsibility for what I did. You, Valerie, Ali, and Ari are now my lovers. That will not change." Aur and Valerie nodded their heads at the same time. Since they had already decided to be with Lux, they would keep this a secret for now. "Don't worry. My sister and I will keep this a secret as well," Ali, who had woken up and heard the conversation, commented. "The two of us will ensure that the Dragon King doesn't discover anything. You have my word." "Thank you, Ali," Lux replied as he kissed the reliable handmaiden, who had protected Valerie to the best of her ability. After being kissed, Ali proposed that all of them take a bath and use healing potions to remove the kiss marks that were planted all over Valerie's and Aur's bodies. Lux, Ali, and Ari didn't mind keeping theirs, but they still decided to play it safe. The adults weren't stupid, and they would certainly become suspicious if they found something out of the ordinary. Prevention was always better than cure. To ensure that their secret would be kept safe, they had to erase all the evidence. And they would keep doing so until the day that Lux was strong enough to declare that they were now his lovers without needing to worry about any kind of retaliation from the angry Dragon King, who could turn him into meat paste with a single slap of his hand. After enjoying a relaxing bath with his lovers and doing one quick round with each of them, Lux and the rest headed to the dining room for a meal. They savored the meal that Ari had prepared for them while discussing what to do for the rest of the day. Valerie wanted to explore more of the city and go on a date with Lux. Ali and Ari were very supportive of this, while Aur decided to accompany them as well. "Since we are going to do this, let's do our best to not attract anyone's attention," Lux said. "We need to act normal, okay? All of you have hidden protectors who will watch your every move. It is best to not do anything suspicious." "Okay." Valerie nodded. "Act normal." Or Ali and Ari nodded as well. A few minutes later, the group left the residence and went to explore the city. They were not aware that a certain Grand Master Elf was currently sleeping soundly on the rooftop of their residence, exhausted from keeping watch the entire night. Just like Lux expected, Lady Faustina and Picoro joined them as they left the Elven Royal Palace. Several high-ranker elves also joined them to serve as guides and to ensure that no fools would antagonize their VIP guests as they checked out the attractions of a Spore Frieden. Unlike the first day where everyone was looking at Lux in disdain, The High Elves were more well-behaved after seeing the emblems of the royal guards who were accompanying Lux and his entourage. No stall owners or shopkeepers dared to act rudely in their presence, and it provided their group with a somewhat enjoyable atmosphere as they strolled around the city. "Your Highness, tonight we will be having a formal talk with the Elf King," Picoro said as he walked beside Or. "I hope that you will be there to witness the proceedings." "Understood," Or nodded. "Also, Your Highness, we will be returning to the Crystal Palace in 2 days," Picoro stated. "Make sure to say your goodbyes to everyone by then." Or frowned but still nodded her head. "Lux's guild headquarters is inside our territory, so I can see him anytime," Or thought. "Also, as long as we are in our territory, we can have our private moments together without worry." Or was also considering having a heart-to-heart talk with her mother and aunt and come clean about her relationship with Lux. She was certain that although the two women would be surprised by her decision, they would still give her their blessings. The reason? Because Lux was the person that her father had chosen. Although he wasn't a dragon or a dragonborn, he still had a dragon bloodline flowing inside his veins, and it was certainly quite powerful. When the half-elf had made love with her, she had felt the strong attraction between their bodies as if they were made for each other. In fact, was certain that Valerie, Ali, and Ari noticed it too when they were embraced by him. He said that he has the immortal dragon conqueror's legacy, or thought. "I'll make sure to check the library for more information about this." The dragon prince glanced at her lover with an affectionate gaze, which didn't escape Picoro's notice. However, the dragonborn didn't mind this one bit because Or and Lux had a close relationship with each other. He was not aware that the half-elf had already conquered the dragon princess and had made her his lover. Valerie, who was now wearing her disguise, was doing her best to not hold Lux's hand. In order to ensure that this wouldn't happen, she had Ali and Ari each hold one of her hands. The three ladies walked hand in hand in the center of the formation, with Lux trailing behind them. Although he wanted to take a stroll holding hands with Valerie and Or, he understood that doing so would be a terrible idea. Their group didn't return to the royal palace until 2 hours before sunset. There was going to be an important talk between the leaders of the different factions that had come to Sporfrieden, and Or needed to participate in it. As for the side of Karshvar Draconis, Lady Faustina would be representing the Dragon King. When Lux, Valerie, Ali, and Ari arrived at their residence, they noticed Hirswith standing beside the entrance waiting for them. "You girls go in first. I want to have a private talk with my grand disciple," Hirswith said with a smile. The 3 dragon girls didn't find anything wrong with this, so they entered the residence first. After making sure that no one was in their surroundings, the extremely beautiful elf waved her hand and created a barrier, preventing anyone from hearing and seeing the two of them. "Well then, Lux, did you enjoy your night?" Hirswith asked with a devilish smile on her face. "I did, Master," Lux replied, not knowing that his grandmaster had protected them from being spied on by anyone. "Hey, I'm sure you did. A very memorable night, right?" It was. Hirswith eyed her grand disciple and patted his shoulder. "Lux, just know that I am always here to support you," Hirswith stated. "Even if the world becomes your enemy, I will always be on your side." Lux smiled. "I know, Grandmaster." The beautiful elf then took a jar out of her storage ring and handed it to Lux. "These are Jap's ashes," Hirswith said in a solemn tone. "Do you know a place where we can bury them? A place where his tomb will not be desecrated?" "I know a place, Grandmaster," Lux said as he held the jar securely in his hands as if it was a priceless treasure. "There is a place that Master always liked to go on the floating island. I will bury his remains there." Hirswith nodded. "Do you have any future plans?" Lux closed his eyes and pondered for a bit. "I plan to mourn Master for a few days and watch over his tomb," Lux replied after careful consideration. "After that, I will be visiting a few places. I'm not going to lie to you, Grandmaster. I am at a loss about what to do at the moment. There are things that I need to find, and I know how important they are, but I have no idea where to start looking for them. Elysium is vast, and there is still the issue with the Divine Army. I'm sure that those guys will not leave me alone." Hirswith wrapped her arms around Lux's body and pulled him close. "You don't have to worry about the Divine Army for the time being," Hearswith stated. They are the biggest loser from this conflict, and they will not antagonize you for the time being. For now, focus on finding the pillars of eternity. Lux pulled back and gazed at his Grandmaster's eyes in surprise. Grandmaster, you know about the pillars of eternity? I do. But, just like you, I don't know where they are. The half-elf sighed because this quest was truly hard to accomplish. The only lead that he had was that he would have an opportunity to come across these divine artifacts that would help save Solais from destruction. One more thing, Lux, Hearswith said as she whispered something in Lux's ears. Although she had created a barrier to prevent anyone from seeing and hearing their discussion, she didn't want to take any chances due to how important this was. If you ever make love to those 4 dragon ladies again, make sure to cover their lips, Hearswith whispered. Their moans are loud enough to wake up the dead. The half-elf's body shuddered after hearing the beautiful elf's words. It was at that moment when he realized that he kept up a second time. Disclaimer. Last intimate scene of this arc, enjoy it while it lasts. While the Dragon Prince, was busy dealing with political matters, the Dragon Princess, Valerie, was busy taking lessons from Ari about how to make Lux feel good. That's right. Hold it gently as if it's something very precious, Ari said. Kiss the tip and lick the glands. That's it. You're doing great. The 2 beautiful ladies were kneeling on the carpet and taking good care of little Lux, who was very happy with the attention he was getting. Everyone would risk their lives to get the opportunity to kiss a lady so beautiful that she could cause the downfall of nations, especially someone with a high status like Valerie. Not only was Valerie a top beauty, but she was also the one and only dragon princess of Karshvar Draconis. The number of people that would want to marry her was countless. Yet this same precious princess was lovingly kissing, licking, and sucking little Lux, who was twitching nonstop due to how good and happy he was feeling. While this was happening, Ollie was busy kissing Lux. Similar to the handmaiden was very fond of kisses. Ollie was level-headed and would always think before she acted. She was the complete opposite of her sister who acted before she thought things through. But now, even this smart and level-headed young lady couldn't stop herself from kissing the handsome half-elf who had taken her chastity, along with her twin sister and Valerie. When their kiss ended, Ollie raised her body and pulled Lux to her chest. Ollie, you're bolder than I thought you were, Lux said before kissing and cupping her breasts. You're guilty of making me like this, Ollie said as Lux kissed, licked, teased, and sucked her breasts. So, take responsibility. Ollie whimpered as a popping sound reached her ears. Lux had sucked her breast too hard and released it just as suddenly, making her whimper. Yes, ma'am, Lux replied before licking and kissing along the line of her cleavage, sending shivers running down Ollie's spine. Ari, who was paying close attention to the half-elf's little brother, noticed that it was starting to grow a bit bigger as Valerie licked its tip. Valerie, our darling Lux is about to release his seed, Ari said. This might still be too early for you, so let me take over. No, Valerie replied as her face turned beet red. I want to be the one to do it. Are you sure? This is not easy, Valerie. You might choke if you're not careful. I am prepared. Seeing how determined she was, Ari nodded her head. Okay, swallow the tip and make sure to not use your teeth. That place is very sensitive, Ari commented. Stroke the shaft with your hands. A man will release his seed when he is feeling good. How could Lux not be aroused in his current situation? Right now, these ladies were servicing him without the influence of the aphrodisiac, so he knew that they were in their right minds. What had happened a day ago had already happened, and there was nothing they could do about it. Because of this, they decided to embrace their current relationship and were in the process of strengthening their bonds with each other. Half a minute later, Lux wrapped his arms around Ali's body and buried his head on her chest. Valerie, who was sucking the half-elf's member, opened her eyes wide in surprise when she felt something hot bursting inside of her mouth. The dragon princess did her best, but she was still unable to hold everything inside her lips and started coughing. Ari immediately came to the rescue and took over Valerie's role. The beautiful handmaiden drank everything to the last drop. When she was done, she used water magic to clean Valerie's face, breasts, which had been stained by Lux's seed, and the carpet that caught the overflow. "Are you all right?" Ari asked after she cleaned everything up. "I'm okay," Valerie, who felt embarrassed with her action, replied. "I'm sorry. I wasn't able to drink it all." Valerie could still taste Lux's essence inside her mouth. It tasted sweet and salty at the same time. "It's fine. I'm sure that Lux will not complain. Right, Lux?" Ari asked the half-elf, who was leaning his head against Ali's breasts and panting for breath. "No complaints here," Lux replied after he regained his composure. Ari nodded her head in satisfaction. "Now, let's proceed to the next part," Ari stated. "Even though your upper lips can't swallow everything, your lips down there can handle it just fine. We will now proceed with the next phase of your studies." Ali kissed Lux's forehead one last time before pulling back. She was Valerie's handmaiden and supporter. Because of this, she would back down for the time being and allow their dragon princess to spend what little time remained of their stay in a Sporfrieden with Lux. Ali and Ari were certain that the moment Valerie returned to Karshvar Draconis, she would not be allowed to leave for quite some time. Although she had been granted permission to visit the territory of the Crystal Palace to visit Lux's guild headquarters, the current situation in the continent wasn't good. Simply put, Valerie couldn't see Lux for a time, so they were willing to let her spend as many intimate moments with him as she could to serve as a beautiful memory she could hold on to while they were away from each other. Valerie straddled Lux, while Ari grabbed hold of little Lux. The handmaiden lightly rubbed the little guy on the dragon princess entrance and then glanced at the half-elf. Lux tacitly nodded and slowly lowered Valerie's hips until he was fully sheathed inside of her, like a sword resting in its scabbard. The half-elf and the dragon princess stared at each other for a few seconds before sealing each other's lips with a kiss. "I love you, Sir Lux," Valerie said after their kiss ended. "I love you too, Valerie," Lux replied. "Please, take off the ring on your finger, Sir Lux." Understood. Valerie had made her wishes known to him, and he would not deny her the thing that she wanted. Unlike humans who had a fixed monthly cycle, the cycle of dragons was more random. Sometimes, they were only fertile on certain days of the year. Sometimes, they were only fertile once every 2 to 5 years. So there was no guarantee that Valerie would conceive a child even if Lux were to fill up her womb with his seed every day. It was truly a matter of luck and chance. This was also why Or told him that she was willing to take a gamble. Although she didn't want to get pregnant now, that didn't mean that she was against the idea of giving birth to Lux's child. In order to ensure that no one from the royal palace would be able to hear the moans of his beautiful princess, Lux erected a barrier that prevented anyone from seeing and hearing what was happening inside Hirswith's residence. The half-elf's grandmaster, Hirswith, had taught him this skill, and he was using it to prevent everyone from discovering the scandal of the century. Soon, Valerie's sweet sighs of pleasure reverberated inside the room as Lux made love to her. Just like Ari had said earlier, although Valerie's upper lips were unable to take Lux's powerful release, her lower lips could handle it without a problem. Valerie sighed in happiness because she could feel Lux's seed filling up her womb. Although Ali and Ari didn't tell her anything, she knew that her time with her beloved was limited. So after a short rest, she took the initiative to move her hips and made love to him over and over again.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.